I went from being the 2,000-mile fund back in 2000 to literally now I only go 100 miles from my office, which gives us a little better grasp on our collateral, our borrower, etc. If you want to know anything about us or the firm, you can take a look at what's on the table. More importantly, every decade I have to get off my ass and write something serious. And you have a white paper we just published over the summer called It's Not Housing This Time. And I published my first article probably in the 80s, and I think I gave my first big speech at Yale University in 85, and I've done probably 20 lectures at Columbia, dozens and dozens at NYU. And I try to share what it is that I know, and most of what I know because I screwed something up. And if you survive long enough, you screw up enough stuff, and you know a lot of stuff. So that's kind of the idea of why I share all of this. And so we're obviously, look, my personal opinion is the recession started in January of this year for sure. And I actually think technically the recession started in January of 19 before the entire pandemic and COVID thing. My annual report, my mid-year report to my shareholders in summer of 19 was the recession will start by year end. And in fact, I do this thing on, if you want to get a couple of laughs, I do this little podcast called Billy Ball. And in August of 19, I said, not only will the recession come and year end, but I said within the next 6 months, you'll see the stock market go from, I think it was at 26, and I said the Dow will go from 26 to 16 within the next 6 months. Did not, and I said it was because of a black swan. I did not know the black swan would be COVID. I figured it would be another Bernie Madoff type thing. But sure enough, if I knew how to short the market, I would have made a lot of money, but I don't believe in shorting the market. I think it's kind of un-American, but everybody does it. But the recession definitely started in January 19, and it was averted because of all the stimulus that came about from COVID. Because if you just look back, it ain't rocket science. The crash, Lehman Bear crash, happened in 08 and 09, right? So I didn't even go to college. I'm not that smart a guy. But I go, okay, if the average recession, if the average up period is 7 to 8 years, then if we were clearly in the depths of hell in 8, 9, and 10, well, and in 19, you were 9 years out, which was clearly 2 years past the normal growth period. So the good news about COVID, and God, I apologize if anybody lost a family member or got it themselves, and I know enough people that got it, definitely wasn't a good thing. But the government and what they did was they gave out a lot of money, so people kept shopping over the internet, stayed home, and it truly lifted the market. So clearly, this recession would have been gentler had we started when we should have started. And then let me point out one other thing, and then I'm going to show you a couple of slides from this white paper that's on your tables. My apologies to the youngsters out there, but you know what's great is whenever the market's going down, there's more gray-haired people than there are young people at these events. I started this business in 1980. Prime was at 16%. My CFO, Alan Lazaroff, is back there, and he's 10 years. I just turned 60. I've been doing this since I'm 18. And your mortgage on your first house in 81 was how much? 13. And he had a cheap mortgage because there were actually mortgages, first mortgages on homes at 16, 17, 18%. So What happened after the Lehman Bear subprime crash was the artificial depression of mortgage rates. Basically, and I got a whole bunch of 20-somethings over here that work with us. This whole thing that mortgages are 3% was really a crock of crap. Mortgages have averaged 7% for 40 years. In fact, the further you go back, the higher the average mortgage rate is. So I think the new generation got a little too hooked. And look, I got 3 kids. They're hooked. They were hooked. It's like a drug on 3% money. When over 40 years, the average is 7%. So all of this media stuff is kind of just, it's sensationalizing something that was just supposed to happen. So I'll take you through a couple of slides on my view and what I see of it, and I'm going to summarize it. And then afterwards, I'm just going to tell you, if you are a banker, what we're doing, what our strategies are, which basically, strategy 1 is always help your borrower. In COVID, I'm happy to say, I don't think we had to foreclose on anybody. We got them PPP. We had a whole team getting grants, PPP. I used to wear, as you know, Bob and Charlie Kaufman, I know 40 years here. I wore a suit every day of my life until COVID hit. And then I started getting in the field more, and I said, screw it, I'm not wearing a suit anymore. But I'd rather be on my sites, meeting with my contractors, at my customers, whether it be supermarkets, junkyards, concrete companies, ski resorts. I'd rather be on site as a banker than trying to walk by in a suit and go, oh, isn't that great? So I'll take you through some charts that we found, and these are the charts that I track. So let me see if I know how to work this thing. But, okay, let me give you the title. It's not housing this time. It started in 1980. Every crash happened because of housing and because of bankers. So let's be clear. Now, look, it's usually bankers above our pay grade, by the way, folks. Good news. But in 1987, when every savings and loan was a real estate developer, and I woke up on Black Monday, October 19th, 1987, breaking my ass. I was a contracted developer builder, and I knew all I had to do was wake up every morning, complete a house, do it in a good way, get my subs paid, make sure my customers buying the house were happy. I thought that I could live life nice. And I woke up on October 19th, and by the way, I was a little rock star. I was 24 years old, building 40 homes in Lincoln Park, New Jersey, all pre-sold. 24 years old. By the way, how crazy it was back then? A bank gave me $10 million. I had no net worth. Me and my brother together maybe had $5,000, and we got a $10 million loan. But it was great because we pre-sold the houses, which is why the bank gave us the money. And October 19th, I woke up, and I was just driving to work like a regular guy. And at 5 o'clock, I found out that every buyer, and I didn't follow the stock market to this day, by the way. I'm 60 years old. I've never invested in a stock ever in my life. Never will. Might as well just go down to the casino. Same thing. So at 5 o'clock, every single home buyer called me and backed out of the house. Thank God the bank had the deposits, which were back then 10%, non-refundable. And I couldn't do anything for them. I said, sorry, you bought a $500,000 house. Bank's got your deposit. I can't give it back to you. Some people walked away from it. The good news, of course, was 5 years later, those houses were worth $500,000 again. Now, one note. At the same time, I had 75 homes in the heart of the South Bronx sold to middle-class Black and Hispanic firemen, sanitation, teachers, and nurses. Not one phone call. What did I learn? Cater to the masses, ye with the classes. What I did not know about my 40 homes in Lincoln Park, New Jersey, was all of those, do you guys remember yuppies? Anybody with gray hair remembers a yuppie? They were all borrowing against their margin accounts on their stock accounts, And when the market crashed, they got capital calls, or margin calls they call them. And not only did half of these people, well, they all lost their deposit, half of them lost everything because they were gambling on the stock market. So 87 for the younger people, that was what happened then. That was all caused by the S&Ls, and a lot of chairmen of S&Ls, look up Charles Keating, went to jail. Because not only were they speculating, but they were stealing. Very clear, again, not at our pay grade, but subprime that started in 02 that nobody noticed until 05. I was on CNBC with Mia Bartoloma, and she said, "Why are you so sure there's a crash coming?" I said, "My bartender's broke, and he owns 20 houses, and he's buying a house every week." So the glut of houses that were produced during that period, it was simple. You needed to be on the ground to notice it, but the straw buyers, the Wall Street institutions, everybody was making it so that everybody could own a house, and that was an okay thing. I'm all for everybody being able to own a house, but my bartender should not have owned 20 houses. That simple. This time around is the first time in my 42 years that the recession and the crash is not because of housing. In fact, both national builders and national realtors say we are 4 million homes behind need. 4 million behind. Never in my life, 42 years in this business, have I heard the words undersupply. So the good news is, one, housing did not cause this. Two, housing is needed desperately because we only produce 1.5 million houses a year. So if you're already 4 million behind, do the math. You got to keep producing 1.5 million to stay even. So we'll probably won't catch up to even supply for 5 more years. Now, does that mean that it is not going to be a painful 18 months? I hate to bullshit you, but people in my office, and you look at anybody that's wearing one of these, there's a bunch of you out there. I got a saying, panic early, panic often, panic some more, and generally you don't have to panic. Now, I've 42 years, I lived through 2 major ones. 87 started and seemed like it never ended till 95. And 2008, which kind of ended in late 11, early 12. I don't count the dot-com crap because that really didn't affect real estate, and the long-term capital credit BS, which was really just people betting on the Russian ruble and lost their ass. That didn't affect real estate either. But let me just take you through some things that will at least give you some optimism about housing, which is the underbelly of and the underpinning of our entire economy in America, and particularly resi lenders who are here, real estate lenders are here. It's all about housing. So we just got to hold on. It's going to take till the end of next year, but you'll see some graphs, and they're down there on the table. But so these are housing units completed, right? So the 1.5 million, that's your norm line, right? Look at what happened. So we got into the shit, right, in 04. Look at how high it went, 2.5 million. But look at how little we produced, right? Even up and through last year, we were still under the norm. So we need a lot of housing. And by the way, the data point I told you, national builders, national realtors, 4 million, 5 million under, that does not count any of the immigrants coming into the country. Which, if anybody can tell me how many there are, I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. But I'm going to tell you it's probably another 1 million more needed because whatever immigrants are coming in now, and by the way, my grandparents were immigrants. I'm all for immigrants. But there's been 20 years worth of immigrants that aren't documented, so we're probably 6 to 8 million under. Think about it. 20 years worth of immigration, nobody's tracking anybody. So we're way under, and at 1.5 million units per year, which is our average, we probably will not get to equilibrium for a long, long time. I think that's a good thing. Housing units completed. You can see again, this is where the number came from. And this is from the Board of Realtors. So look at that. They say 5.7 million undersupplied. The surplus deficit. So this was what was left over from subprime. And obviously, remember when you used to read the paper, we had 30-month supply, 3-year supply, right? Now, look what you got. You've got this, the chart's flipped. This is the deficit. The deficit in this chart, which is the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, says we're 3 million behind. Now, homes for sale, again. Well, wait a minute, I hit the wrong button there. All right. Homes for sale, 12-month moving average. Again, now you got less and less homes for sale. My kid, and by the way, I'm sure everybody in the audience has this story. My kid got married, had a baby, was looking for a house, got outbid. This is why the media is really culpable in what they're doing right now. Anybody who had somebody looking for a house got outbid on 20 houses, had to wait online, bid up. My kid bought a house. I don't want to say the number, but let me just say it was worth this. She paid that. And it's a shitty house. Sorry, kid. But it's, I mean, and I can't tell you how many weekends she would cry to me that they got outbid. So the good news is there's no supply out there. Mortgage and origination credit score. So again, you go back again to 07, 08. Look at this. All of you in the room, give yourself a round of applause. The mortgage industry actually got their shit together, and it's only 5.5% were below 660. Back then, it was 25% below 660. So thank God the banking industry got their act together. Owner's real estate debt as a percentage of household income. Again, you look at what happened in 08. 54% of household income. How the hell do you do that? Was for your mortgage. I mean, now it's at 30, which, by the way, go like that. Pretty much where it was since 72. That was the old rule, right? New mortgages with equity below 3%. Again, it was 31% of the housing market in America. It's freaking crazy. Down to 8.7. Good news. By the way, I'm trying to keep you guys uplifted. Because I can tell you the whole world's going to shit, which, by the way, in 12 months it is. But we're going to come out better than everybody else. Every other industry doesn't have this good news. Adjustable rate mortgages. Go back again. Just look at where it was. 41% of the market went down to not even 1%. Are you guys upbeat? Is everybody feeling good about the market? Because it is really good news. It's just the media has blown this whole mortgage rates. It's not normal to put your house on the market and have 25 bids in 3 minutes. So what the hell is everybody getting excited about? That's my kind of point. Why is everybody not going on the media? Housing's fine. I mean, really. It is not normal to have 25 bids in 3 minutes. It's not normal to have an open house with a line around the block. So let's go to the main one here. The 30-year mortgage rate. Let's see. I graduated high school 1980. Look at where it was. Now, I bought my first house in 84. So hopefully I think I was at 12%. But can you imagine people actually paid 18% for a first mortgage? And by the way, and I was building my first projects here. People were buying houses. I had to adjust my price down, but there was a market. So now you look and you go, okay, Here's where, what do you guys call Gen X? What the hell are you guys? I used to be a yuppie, but I don't even know. Am I still a baby boomer now, or whatever the hell it is? I was never, because you had to be a young professional. I was never a professional. So look it. All right, now this was from, we did this white paper in June. Who's a Resi guy in here? Where is it now? Did it hit 7 yet? So just look, I wrote this paper in, I wrote this in July 15th. And by the way, now that number's there. All right, so by the way, even if it gets over here, it only stays there for a little bit. Now this, I don't want to get deep into Fed stuff, but Powell is a disciple of Volcker. This was Volcker. Okay, that was all Volcker. Now, if you want to really dig in and look, but the theory should be that the election year, they're going to plow another, I think, 2 more points. So you're going to see you're going to see the mortgage go, I think, to 9. I don't think they're going to let it get to 10, because optically, if they let it get to 10, the media will unleash on the Fed like they never saw before. Because, right, remember, look at back here. Just keep the gray-haired guys in the room like me. There was no CNN. There was no 24-hour media. There was no CNBC. We never thought about mortgage rates. We woke up and went to work. Now it's news. So they will pounce, I think, on the Fed if they let the 30-year mortgage go to 10. Then you got election year, and I just think that what will happen is you'll hit 10, and it'll be back down to 6 by election time in 24. Now, we all have to figure out how to tolerate that, and that's just about getting realistic, digging down, getting your borrowers to be realistic, and kind of that's all there is to it. It's going to be here for a while, but go back to the supply issue, it ain't so bad. And if you saved money and you're a house buyer, you're in good shape. And if you're a seller and you really need to sell, set an a price that has reasonable expectations, and you'll sell. Here's some crazy numbers. Again, mortgage payment as a percentage of family income was 45. It's now 27, and it's inching up. I agree. Now look, here's the good news. Real estate versus the stock market. I don't care what you compare anything to. Here's the S&P, right? But look at commercial real estate and the home price index have always outpaced the S&P. I don't know where the other 40 years is, but this is over the last time inflation got this high. So the purpose of this chart was in inflationary times, real estate holds its head. You got, again, the CPI. Again, you were kind of where we were back in the bad old days of Carter, and it's coming back. Median price of homes, you still can't argue with this one. Look at that, right? We went from the depths of hell to... So if this comes down to here, what's the big deal? It's still crazy good. And then this is just an S&P comparative. Is the government? This is what happened. Everybody was sitting home. That was that Reddit and the other stock thing. I mean, you had 20-year-old kids shorting the market and being completely disruptive. But look, the S&P, everything will eventually come back. The stock, I defy any person in America, in Earth, especially any CFO, to tell me they know the value of their stock on an hourly basis. I can't tell you my bank account on an hourly basis, and I got 3 people that manage my bank account. No, actually, I take that back. Allie, Caroline, Alan. Actually, I think you can tell me my bank account on an hourly basis. Thank you. So your price of homes is still moving up. And for more details on this, you can call me, visit the website, email me. So let's see. I got a couple more minutes. Let me just address a few things. To the lenders in the room, you will confront massive defaults in the next 6 to 9 months. To property owners in the room, you will confront massive defaults in your portfolio. So a couple of basic concepts. And by the way, I don't care if you're a residential developer or a business owner who owns their real estate. Lenders and borrowers, if they didn't fight in 1988 to 1991, by 1994, every property value came back. We would not have needed the RTC, and the American taxpayer would not have gotten fucked royally during that period. And I can't use another word. Now, in 2008, when everything went down, there was a little bit different issue. The nationals were building homes in tertiary markets that didn't need to be built on. I was an advisor to the chairman of GMAC. I was senior advisor to EMC Mortgage, the 8th biggest subprime lender. They sent me out to places. I was like, Calexico, California? Has anybody ever heard of Calexico, California? It's on the border of Mexicali. We either fly in by private jet. When you fly for 2 hours, you see nothing. And then you see Mexicali, which has got 20 million people. Every national home builder was building 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 home projects. They had all started about 50 to 100, and they all had infrastructure in for another 1,000, had the big clubhouse. And I had the benefit of looking at all of their appraisals. I'm talking for 10,000, probably 20 projects, 10,000 units. They all had the same one guy who built 5 houses. One guy built 5 houses and caused 5,000 units to get approved by their banks, the national home builders. So the 08, the absorption of the 08 product, and by the way, you got to hand it to Wall Street. What did they do? There was stuff that should have never been built. So what did they do? They bought it back and created the single-family rental business, right? So the good news is this time it ain't housing. If you have a housing development under construction, if it's horizontal, cut it off, slow it down. If it's vertical, you got to get it finished. You can't leave a 10-story building 5 stories in the air. The bank and the builder got to get realistic. And by the way, the bank thinks they're going to foreclose. You're out of your mind. I've tried to explain one thing to commercial mortgage lenders that do real estate and construction lending. You think you have a first mortgage. You got nothing. The plumber, the electrician, and the HVAC contractor have permits you cannot substitute. You are all walking around in a daze if you think you have a first mortgage. You have a second mortgage behind the plumber, electrician, and HVAC's permit. Try to rip their permit out of the building department. Never happening. So just make love, not war. Everything's going to be better in a few years. So if you're vertical, finish. If you got land, just chill. There's things you can do if you own land. By the way, when I started, there used to be one permit, a building permit. Now you got a freaking county permit, a state permit, an environmental permit. Finish all your permitting. Just because you own land and you're not building doesn't mean you shouldn't be adding value. If you got finished product, get real about the value. For sale product has come down. Now, rental rates on rental stuff has gone up, but so has your perm. So you got to get more creative. You're not getting, look, literally we had a 250 unit, $75 million project. Guy got refied for 2.7% last August. 2.7. We got another guy who just refied last week, 6.5. Same deal, same product. Rents ain't changed that much. So you got to get a variable floater. You got to ride it out. Tighten your belt. Where's my guys? Go to cheaper restaurants. Buy cheaper shoes. The drastic, first in a lifetime, undersupply will eventually, it's there now, but it's not at the forefront. Until the media starts talking about undersupply, it's not going to become something that will give comfort to all the markets. But for real estate, it will not be as bad as the last two things in my life. And the day we get the help back, I'm done with this business. I'm going to retire. I put in 42 years. I figure I put in 3 more, get my crew through this, and then blind monkeys can make money. So, anybody got any questions?